Well, another episode. We're getting ready to start with my boy Mardoqueo To, and Christmas break.
What does everybody think about the podcast so far?
I'm getting really good reception from it.
I'm getting really good. People are blowing up my phone. We get a lot of people who want to come on.
Yeah, no, a ton of people. And I'm glad Mardo could come on right now. But yeah, we are getting.
Hey, we're making it happen over Christmas break. Everybody else is
and we're
drinking eggnog.
We're working.
Another one again. We just don't sleep.
Working, bro.
We're here for you people.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Spreading the gospel of Bitcoin.
That's right.
The first thing is nice to meet you.
Absolutely, man. Likewise.
My real name is Mardoqueo, but it's really hard to pronounce.
I can't say or pronounce that.
Yeah, so I can't roll my R's either. So that's been well established for several years now. So I'm not even going to try. But
so you're down from DC. You work at the El Salvadorian Embassy in DC.
El Salvadoran.
Okay, not so. Okay. I'm getting schooled up here.
My English is not so good, so let me tell you that I was living here in the United States for 2 years, but everybody speaks Spanish at the embassy.
Yeah,
and I go out to eat, and everybody talk with me in Spanish, so I don't practice at all English. Just when I find some people like you.
Just when he has me come and hang out, which he's going to have to tell you about the last time I was there. I thought I was saying something that sounded awesome with these security guards. And
I guess we're just going to have to do the whole... Let's just do the whole podcast in Spanish. Ready? Let's go.
Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están?
That ain't happening.
¿Qué pasó, güey?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Mine's as bad as anybody's. But
yeah, I know enough to survive in Mexico, but that's about it.
Cerveza.
Yeah, I can survive, but I didn't say how long I could survive. I could survive about a week.
Mine is the extent of mine is cerveza and mota. That's it. That's all I know. So. But so Mardo, though, I got to know him over the past couple of years now. I guess early this year is when we first met. Yeah. 2 trips to El Salvador together. And
so how did the condensed version, there's a longer version because I think you've already told it, but what's the condensed version of you even ending up in El Salvador to meet Mardo in the first place?
Well, I met him in DC first. I went to DC and was talking with some folks.
Why'd you go to DC?
To talk with some folks about some like congressmen and staffers and
Did you
senators.
get like looped into that somehow?
Yeah. So Mandy and Surya Gunasekara, which that's who's coming on tomorrow, is Mandy.
It's a great pronunciation of their last name.
It was, wasn't it?
It took me a long
time to practice that. So they invited me to go out, and obviously they come from a political background. They got a lot of connections, and I got to meet with a lot of congressmen and senators and their staffers to just discuss mining and the importance of it and all that. And while we were out there, we wanted to go meet them because the Bitcoin law, and that's kind of wanted to go meet the El Salvadoran folks. And so Mardo was there and got to meet with him, and we hit it off pretty good and figured out that he's like my, El Salvadoran version of myself. So where I'm the American version of him. But
that was his story. I will tell mine.
But then he invited me to El Salvador literally like 3 days later. I was like, yeah, man, fuck it. Let's go.
Do it.
Yeah.
The thing is that the meeting, it wasn't with me. They were talking with my colleague, Carlos Girola, and they have a meeting over there. And Carlos has something to do, but he forgot to call them. So I was going out to get lunch. And then I received a call from the embassy. Hey, somebody's asking for Carlos over here. And I was just at the elevator. I said, okay, I'm going to get this meeting for him, I called Carlos. Oh, yes, I remember now, but I didn't call them. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you help them? Yeah. I can help them. So we start to talk. And the thing is that we were talking about El Salvador and all that stuff. And I said, well, we're going to have one trip to El Salvador in 3 days. If you want to come. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm going. Can I go? Yeah, let's go. And that was his first adventure in El Salvador, Even when the people said that it's really dangerous, I think that the magic thing over here is that when you go over there and you see with your eyes what we have to promise to all the people who want to invest in El Salvador, you will be happy to have this relationship directly with us, because that's our work. That's my work and Carlos' work, trying to find people like Justin to be our promoters from the country. Because I think right now, Justin cannot say anything bad about my country. you know?
I mean, I could say some bad stuff, but mainly that the Ubers are tougher to get. That's true. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. But to clarify, I don't want it because people can misconstrue just a promoter. Like, I went down full eyes open to kind of see what it was like. And obviously, there's a large amount of poverty, right? Just like there is here, though, in a lot of major cities, right? We have issues.
Right here in Houston.
Right.
Tons of poverty.
Yeah.
There's a food line that I have to drive past like every Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah, dude. It's like we easily and conveniently forget that like we have a lot of problems too. And we can look at places like El Salvador and other places around the world and like, I know, like that place is, they got all these problems, the violence, all yada, yada, yada. While we're in DC, you pointed out that there was multiple murders on the same street that we were on while we were out there. So it's like, this happens everywhere. Now, have they had, which this is going to get into what I want to talk about with Mardo, but have they had issues where they were one of the worst crime, violence places in the world? Yes. A lot of that is due to what they're coming out of in the very, very recent past. And, it's easy for us to kind of judge them against where we are post, our Civil War. It would be a very different story. Like, we had plenty of violence, plenty of problems for decades after the end of our Civil War. This was a major Civil War, 13, 14 years, something like that.
Actually, it was kind of 11 years. 12 years. Yeah,
okay.
Because it started in 1980 and finished in 1992.
Okay, so several years though. And
so my one question, so I want to get into all the backstory.
Just give me a second. I'm not paying Justin.
He's not paying me.
I'm not paying Justin.
I know. Justin's not getting paid anything by El Salvador.
I'm not getting paid by El Salvador. I've paid for every trip when I go out there. Yeah, it's no problem.
So I think this kind of lay the stage for how the rest of the conversation could go. Is you said kind of getting the word out about El Salvador and what you guys are doing there. What is the goal there? Is it to attract investors? Is it to be a case study for other countries? Is it showing what's possible coming out of this civil war? I'm kind of curious as to what y'all's motivation for kind of getting out there and the story that you're wanting to tell. Like, where does that come from?
Well, first of all, that this question is really hard to answer because our goal is getting the best benefits to our people.
Yeah.
And most of the governments come to the United States to ask money for cooperation. And the ambassador of El Salvador is working to get more investment because if you get investment, you get not just the money that it comes, you get more works at El Salvador, you give better salaries to our people, and the people doesn't want to come to the United States. The people come to the United States because there are lack of opportunities in El Salvador. But if you have these opportunities to earn the money in El Salvador, nobody wants to travel this dangerous road from El Salvador to the United States. So I think this decision from our president to start to knock the doors for investors, it was the best decision that we can have here in the United States. Even our relationship with the government is important. But I think that when you start to talk with the people and you explain to the people, because it's really hard, for example, that you are hearing at the news that El Salvador is getting 40 people dying by day. That was our past, our past. It was hard for us.
40 murders.
40 murders a day, The gangs member getting all the territory in some poor neighborhoods, giving arms, drugs to little kids to commit murders or using drugs or selling drugs, That was our reality before that the president, Bukele, and all the government people from the security start to work in one plan that we hope that it will be during all the time, since since they started, because when you start to see our country right now, you really feel a different feeling with the people because the people at least have some hope. This hope, it wasn't exist before. As Justin told us, like the war was, I was young when the war started. Well, I remember some things that, for example, we have to live in some military neighborhood because my dad feels that it was for us more secure to live over there. So we were living in one neighborhood that it was a lot of soldiers in one side and other soldiers in the other side, and you can live a bubble in San Salvador because in that way you cannot feel all the things, But when the war started to grow and we start to grow too with my family, I remember, for example, that we were sitting in our houses and seeing the helicopters shoot some people in the mountains, and we stay there like looking, wow. But I don't know how many people died in our country, but it was fighting for some reason, and that reason is disappeared because at the least what we found with this government because of the news communication is that they were talking together, to make some plans to get more richer them, and then they put the population with less resources to live.
So if I feel bad for being ignorant about El Salvador, but I feel like a lot of people probably aren't schooled up on like maybe the full story of. We don't have to go super deep into the history, but I do want to have like a basic understanding of like the Civil War and why it happened. What kind of regime was there? Like, was it what kind of government prior to the Civil War, and then like what led up to the Civil War?
Well, we lived in it was a lot of how do you call when one president was take off by the force?
Like kidnapped?
No.
No?
A coup?
A coup.
Oh, coup.
Okay.
Okay. Nice.
Yes.
There we go.
Nice.
Coup. Coup. So basically in our country, it was a coup almost 2 or 3 years,
Every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
Was it set up as
it's a military government that decides that the president that it was at that moment, it doesn't work, so let's coup him.
So was it pretty much always prior like military leaders that were kind of coming in, and
it was military, yeah.
They bring kind of their own military,
Yes,
like a strong arm regime.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yes. And then the universities and some associations start to try to get off this military, and they want free elections. So basically, the problem was that we don't have free elections for a long time, and the people who decides to go against the government, they disappear them. So
all these people at universities and stuff, I'm guessing professors and students,
yes,
they just disappear.
Yeah, so that's why the people goes out, start to make a guerrillas, and the war starts, and it start fighting because they have the conviction that they can get the power by the arms, and then they will give the people what they think that they deserve,
So the guerrillas are actually kind of the good guys here, right?
Well,
sort of.
It depends.
that looks like, but
Yeah.
when you start to see right now what happened before, there are some people who died because they have some thoughts that the things has to happen to change our country. But then when they sign the peace, the guerrilla has 2 opportunities to change this history because they were in the government. Democratic elections put some people from the left party that it was before the guerrillas as a president, and they didn't do anything for the people. And that's
so the guerrillas won the Civil War, or no? Or they just got a seat
because they signed a peace.
Okay, so they signed a peace,
yes.
and then they made an agreement, and they said,
yes.
So the party that was already there before, and then the guerrillas came to an
Yes.
agreement and said, hey, we're going to have an open election. Whose party won the election the first time?
The right party.
So
Actually, in our country, for understand our country, because we believe that the people has the right to choice. We don't have just two parties. There are a lot of parties. Even this political party that right now is working with the president, and this is another story that we can talk for hours and hours, because when he started to say that he wants to be president, all the political parties or the strongest political parties, that is Left Party, FMLN, and Arena, that is the right party, they start to work together and don't let him to compete. That was their story. He cannot compete, and they make a lot of problems or troubles around the way that the president is trying to get his candidacy as a president, and they start to stop where they think that they can do it. And I think that's why the president gets stronger, because the people were seeing that these two enemies,
established parties, and trying to block someone.
Enemies start to work together for don't let one guy, cute guy, to try to be president for our country. So basically, I think that in that time, a lot of people who was blind start to see what happened before. They start to understand why we have all these problems around our country, because they see what they want to do. And then that's why the president get all this support as a candidacy, because then when he won the presidency and you start to see what he did, is a different story. But at the beginning, because when he start to work and he find that the establishment doesn't let him do the right thing for our country, the people give all the resources to the president to get all the power from the Congress, and that way he can make all the changes that he wants. And right now, believe it or not, his popularity in our country is even better than before,
so everybody likes Bukele.
Yes.
He's got an 86% approval rating, and that is per Gallup. Went in and did an independent kind of.
That's pretty crazy. How long has he been president for?
Well, right now, 3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are the terms in El Salvador?
5 years.
5 years. And then can he get reelected again for another 5 or no?
Well, they are working on it, because there's one interpretation for our constitutional court that it says that he's allowed, because if you read the Constitution, gives you the opportunity, because it says you cannot be a candidate if you were in the period before, and the period before is not when he's working. The period before is 5 years ago. Yeah. So it's the door is open, and they are doing that to find a way that he can compete, but legally, constitutionally. And I think that right now, if you see, I don't have to talk about politics, but I love to talk about politics. So, but before I was working with the government, I wasn't part of any political party. I resigned a long time ago to one little political party that I compete a long time ago in 2012 as a candidate from the Congress. They let me use their flags, and I participate with them, But before that, I never voted for any of the two big political parties in El Salvador. Yeah. So for me, it's easy to say without any problem that the things that they were doing in that time, it was the worst thing for our country.
So what is just maybe you can answer this, what is the short history on El Salvador and its relationship to Bitcoin? And that'll probably lay the foundation for the rest of it.
Yeah, so the short history is in 2021, in September, they implemented the Bitcoin law. Yeah, yeah, very recent. So we're just over a year ago that it's been implemented.
It's called the Bitcoin law?
I mean, yeah, basically that is what it's called, right? The Bitcoin law?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so El Salvador, for everybody who doesn't know, their currency was the US dollar, right? That it still is
yes
the currency
I
there.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So they are completely reliant on the dollar. They don't have their own national currency. You used to have colones, right?
Yes, we supposed to have, but they
It's
just
it doesn't
hide the
Just
colones.
nobody accepts it anymore.
And if you go, but because I saw some videos that some guy went to Colones to try to buy at the market, and say, oh, how much it costs this? And she said in dollars, oh, $2, and he gave her the
Colones?
the colones exactly amount that she was asking in dollars. I said, what is this? Colones? No, I don't receive this. The people, even that.
Nobody believes in the currency
nobody,
anymore.
Nobody is using the currency. But if you go to the bank with the colones, they have to change it.
For dollars.
So it made Bitcoin legal tender?
Yes, so they made Bitcoin legal tender in September of 21. And they've gotten grief because obviously Bitcoin has tanked since then, which again, we've talked about this probably many times, is that Bitcoin goes through these. Like it's just a fact of the way it works. And it's going to probably happen in the future. We'll have another bull run. These cycles are real. But El Salvador, in my opinion, I won't put you on the spot on all that, but this is not a move that they're making like you would go invest in a stock knowing that it's going to rise next year. This is a change of an economic system and an ability to bring really kind of some economic freedom to the country. It's not just about it, trying to make money, make more dollars off an investment. Mm-hmm. At least that's my interpretation of it. And it's easy for like IMF points at, oh, look at, this is basically trying to strong arm the country into getting off of Bitcoin as legal tender. Because I think you mentioned it earlier, the rest of the world, whether this is El Salvador's intent or not, is going to use this as like a barometer for whether or not they're going to do it. Yeah. And there's more countries that are in the situation in El Salvador than there are that aren't, where the economic policies and decisions of the U.S. significantly impact them. And if you think about the amount of dollars that have been printed over the past, 2, 3, 4 years, it's something like 80% of the dollars in circulation have been printed in the last like 4 years. Yeah. That's a huge number. But of those dollars that get created, at least those dollars stay in our economy. So yes, we go through inflation, but significantly less in a place like El Salvador, where their currency is the US dollar. And so we print an insane amount of dollars that, deflate the value, inflate, and create huge inflation and deflate the value of the dollar. They get it like double than what we do because they don't have those dollars circulating in their economy anymore. This is just, they purely get the impacts of the inflation that's created. And so I heard Bukele talk about that on Tucker Carlson a while ago when he was on there. And that's kind of my big thing for everybody, is that if I'm another country that is solely relying on the dollar, like moving to Bitcoin makes a lot of sense just to protect yourself from policy decisions that you have no control over whatsoever. And so we've seen a lot of, you see a lot of the rhetoric from like the IMF, even the US government, the Biden administration in particular, kind of going after El Salvador, trying to point out the problems with them jumping into, making Bitcoin legal tender. But I think that's more out of fear and a control that they want to maintain over countries like El Salvador that are relying on the dollar, and you can kind of force and strong arm people into doing what you want. I'm not a shill for El Salvador. I'm basing this as purely my opinion that I like seeing people go and do something against the grain or different than what they've been used to doing repeatedly over and over. And they've suffered through coup after coup after coup. And to think that the economic situation of the country doesn't have any impact on those, like the rationale for why these coups are happening is ridiculous.
So go back to what you were saying, it was like coup after coup after coup, where it's like the economic reset, and therefore there's no hope for the people to ever kind of escape this,
right?
Hamster wheel of just like, I'm trying to get ahead. Maybe it's 4 steps forward and then 7 steps back every 4 to 5 years. That's got to be exhausting. That? And then the most dangerous thing in the world is to remove hope from people. Because once you remove hope from people, then you have things like crime, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody just runs rampant in the streets.
Right. You didn't speak to some of the crime. Yeah. So this is something I didn't learn about until I went down there either. And look, I love America, but we don't know enough about the details of places like El Salvador and what they deal with. But talk about that. So like the Civil War ends 92, and then what it was like right after that. I know you had the coups, but like from the private citizens, talk about the gangs and how they came in. Everybody knows MS-13, but we don't really know the history of it.
Well, actually, you know that most of the people from El Salvador in that time in the war, they start to come to United States and Canada and Australia because they almost get out of their land and they have to look for opportunities. So I think that you know that here are around 3 million Salvadorans over here, you know, and a lot of these people came during the war and start to work over here, but they don't want to live over here. They want to live in El Salvador. So basically, this is the other problem. When the war finished, a lot of people who used to use guns, they don't know anything more to do. You know,
no jobs,
it's like,
no
it's
jobs,
like,
nothing.
What am
nothing.
I good at? I'm good at shooting stuff.
A war
Being
ends. That's all you've
intimidating.
been doing. You've been fighting in the Civil War,
There's
in the war for 12 years.
So many historical cases of this.
Oh, yeah.
Of just soldiers that have nothing else
Right,
to do.
right. We have the problem here.
Yeah.
We have a problem here
But
with it.
the main thing over here is that some people who lived over here start to feel attacks. They start to receive attacks for some gangs in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, there were some gangs that they find Salvadorans start to take these things off, you know, like robbing and doing a lot of crimes to our people. So basically, the MS-13 start or born in Los Angeles to try to protect these people for all the attacks from the other gangs. So they start to basically
Used to protecting your own
start
El
to work
Salvadorian.
over here. And then some of these people get caught for the police and sent into El Salvador. So when they send these people to El Salvador, they start to make the gangs in El Salvador. And in that time, nobody sees as a huge problem in El Salvador. And nobody talks about it. You know, everybody knows that the gangs were there, but nobody was talking about the gangs. But the gangs start to grow, start to get organizations, huge organizations start to recruit young people to the gangs, and then they get all the power. But not just the Salvadorans who's part of the MS-13, because there is another gang is from Mexico that they send the people to El Salvador too. So we have two gangs in El Salvador fight each other, you know, for territories. At the beginning, I would say, okay, these people is fighting over there, far from our houses.
Like we're not gonna worry about it.
We don't have to worry about it. But then they start to grow and grow and grow, and start to be like an organization crime. You know, like
It's like mafia.
it's like
So now
kind
are they kind of everywhere in El Salvador now?
Well, actually, not everywhere, because there are some zones that they cannot live over there because, for example, El Salvador is not so big, but the main problem it was in the zones out of the cities, and zones that are is so crowded. You know, like they are poor people who works in San Salvador, but they kids live in these cities, you know, we call like a dormitory cities, because the people just go to sleep and then has to work in San Salvador, and they have crowded that a lot of population lives over there. So in that cities start to grow, and it's the poor people whose family is not integrated because some of them has to come to United States, so they live with their grandmother or grandfather, you know. But it's a social problem that nobody take care of it for 13 years, you know, like not 20 years, 30 years. Yeah, 30 years. So it grows. And right now the president start to do some actions that somebody has to do it,
Mm-hmm.
And when he made some actions, some organizations start to talk about the problem that it can have these people because he's not helping or respect their rights, the human rights from these people. And this is the thing that is always working in the bad press, bad press against the president. Well, I cannot say bad press, but the press that is against of the president. And they start to talk about the human rights of these people. But you know that before that, a lot of Salvadorans were dying daily. I heard some histories from one guy from Tonacatepeque, that is a little country, little city around San Salvador, that in this city, one gang member said, I love your girl, so she has to be my girlfriend. So that take off his kid from that place. And the gang member, when he discovered that the girl's not living over there, he sent to kill his mother and her mother and her sister,
That's
and that's the kind of stories that you heard before, and the stories that the people doesn't talk too much. They don't go to the authorities because if you go to authorities, everybody is in danger.
Mm-hmm.
All your family is in danger. So right now, the president start to earn the confidence of the people in the authorities. It's not just the confidence. Is another things like the hope, as I said before, because if you don't have these problems in your house, you can work, you can think about what you're doing. But imagine you thinking that somebody can kill your kids during your working in San Salvador.
I don't feel like I'd ever go to work.
So nobody, everybody is afraid, and you have to pay. For example, I live in that neighborhood, so if I want to go inside, I have to pay the gang member to go in. If I don't pay him a quarter or something, I don't know, whatever you think, you cannot go in. So you just have to work for giving food to your family, but then you have to pay to go inside your house. So that's crazy. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
And
that's part of you're painting a good picture, because that's the part about the Bitcoin law, bring it back to that I think is so important, because it's changed the image of the country. And Gerson Martinez is a friend of ours.
Yes.
He tells that story really well, and that he grew up as an El Salvadoran. He was sent back to El Salvador when he was little, but then he came back over here. He grew up dealing with not wanting to tell, and these are his words, so I don't want to misconstrue it, but he grew up with kind of a not wanting to tell anybody that he's from El Salvador, and this image of like, not being proud of where you're from or your roots or any of that. And he talks about this on a lot of different things I've heard him talk on, how this Bitcoin law has really changed all of that in a short period of time, just from a branding perspective. And like, instead of people thinking the first thing when you say El Salvador, thinking of violence and gangs, they think of Bitcoin and opportunity. And that's where hope's born, is opportunity. If you don't have opportunity, you don't have hope. And so that's a big part of why I'm like, I want to see this succeed in El Salvador, and I will always be pushing for success there, because I've met the people there. I stayed a couple days extra after that first trip because I didn't want to be with the contingency, and I wanted to just kind of go travel around myself a little bit. And I didn't get a ton of time to do it, but I did take enough Uber rides and taxi rides to figure out that like, there is hope in the country now where there wasn't probably before. And especially from the young people, they see the difference in what they grew up watching and what they're watching now, and the feel that comes from something as crazy and as simple as adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. And now there's opportunity, and there's things that are happening from that.
I think the Bitcoin works as an important booster to our country, because nobody knows even what is El Salvador. Well, El Salvador is in Central America, if you don't know. El Salvador is in Central America. Not South America, Central America. And the thing is that a lot of people didn't know what is El Salvador. And right now, like when you start to talk with the people, they just know about the president. But when you go to our country, you start to feel this connection. So Bitcoin help us to, a lot of people who's in Bitcoin that doesn't know where El Salvador is, they want to go to El Salvador to visit. And then when they go to El Salvador, hook with the people and start to work in programs. There are some programs as associations who's working, NGOs that are working with the people to build houses. There are some people who's doing business in Bitcoin in El Salvador. So the Bitcoin law is not the big law, it's just like 14 articles, and what important is to say that Bitcoin is accepted as a legal tender. You don't have to do a lot of regulations when you're open to this kind of investments. You just give the opportunity to the market has to develop all the regulations that it will grow around when you see you're going with proof and error, just building all the framework that is working. Right now, it's not just the Bitcoin law. There are another laws around the Bitcoin law or framework that is helping to develop more buildings, more real estate, more tourism. Actually, because of the Bitcoin, we knew some people from DC that they were buying coffee from El Salvador in a little scale, and they decide to do one brand of coffee, one blend that is using a tin that it has a Bitcoin, and they made all the history that they think that has to be in the tin. And Compass Coffee selling this coffee. I don't know if I can do that because
what's the name of the company? Because
it's Compass Coffee.
Compass Coffee.
Like Compass Mining.
It actually looks very similar. I thought that when I met him, I was like, wait,
Compass Mining making coffee?
It's Compass Coffee, and we were out there in early November. Yeah.
So these people are doing this blend just for our conversation. They are interested in Bitcoin. They are buying coffee from El Salvador, not in a big scale, but they decide to support this movement and give the opportunity to Salvadoran companies to sell. There is another coffee company that he's sending tins from El Salvador through over here. The name of the company is Cherito. Cherito is the word that we use to call little friend. It's a slang from El Salvador. If you say chero, you're my friend. So Justin is my chero. Justin is my chero. It's like a friend. So we use a lot of these opportunities to give hope to the people, and we're working with companies to open the mind. And Bitcoin is a real good booster to find people who has the money to invest in our country.
Well, what you're doing is you're making the statement that, hey, we want to put in sound money, right? Sound monetary policy.
And we're open for business with something that it's almost like there's so many people are waiting kind of on the edge, right? For like first movers or things to settle. And it's like they've taken the first step of, you know what, we're not going to wait around for everybody else. We're going to dive in and make this a part of our economy moving forward. And that's a big deal. And to take it back to what a big deal it is. So it's a branding exercise, in my opinion, partly, right? And that has, in my mind, that has been a huge success, huge success. I don't care what the IMF says.
You can't think El Salvador without thinking Bitcoin.
Right.
Now.
It worked. Like, in my opinion, that was a huge success. The other part of it is kind of the real world impacts, which are setting an example and being the test case for a lot of other countries to look at it. And I think September of this year, you had 44 countries from around the world that make up about 15% of the world's GDP come into El Salvador to discuss and kind of see how the whole transition is going, because they're evaluating it as well. And that's the big part of this whole adoption of Bitcoin going forward. The countries that are going to do it are the ones that need to do it.
And even the people from the United States is looking at us.
Oh, yeah.
There are some Congress people who wants to go to El Salvador to see how it's working, because even I cannot say from which state, but
yeah.
But
come on, man, we won't tell nobody.
No, I cannot say because I'm not allowed.
Yeah,
for
no,
them,
we get it, man. We're not trying to get you in trouble, Mardo. This is
So, but there are some people who wants to go to El Salvador and understanding about our law. But basically, our government is doing another movement that is really interesting, because they are working to get good relationships with the countries or the states that they have a really open mind to Bitcoin.
Texas.
Texas.
We need to go do something else.
I hope that Texas can do something, because right now we have in Lugano the first general, it's like honorary consul, that he's from El Salvador and he will work in Lugano to promote from Lugano to Europe our country as a destination to invest in Bitcoin. And they are working in one office that it will be the office of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin office, that it will help to the people who wants to go to El Salvador to invest in Bitcoin, to show them how the framework work over there, So I think we're not just static with the law, we're working in some framework and at least one right now that is something that is really, really sounding in El Salvador, is that there's one law that it calls, I don't know how to translate in, but it's like electronic assets or digital assets. Digital assets. Yeah. So this law is for all the altcoins that want to go to El Salvador and other things that are relation with altcoins, because they will not be regulated at the same as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is legal tender, so the regulation in Bitcoin is really a small step to get the investments in El Salvador. But with this thing, we or the president wants to say that Bitcoin is allowed to use it in El Salvador, that if you are going to invest in Bitcoin as a maximalist thing, from our government, you have to be working with this framework that is easy for you and is not hard for the people, but you have to make the framework to help the people not get how to say that, scam. Not I mean, I don't want to say that everybody is a scam, but they want to regulate that. At least you have one person over there to respond if they want to do some scam and stuff.
Well, and I mean, FTX.
It's enough said.
Right.
What do you see as the biggest opportunities for investment? Are there certain categories that you guys are trying to kind of promote? Let's just say, hey, maybe investment in real estate. Maybe there's certain things that we need.
Right now, we're I think it's my opinion. Like the hospitality investment in El Salvador has to grow, because we don't have enough rooms right now for the people who's coming, and the government is helping them to promote our country. And if you go to El Sonte, that is a Bitcoin beach, or you're going to,
it's freaking sick.
The beach is nice.
Oh yeah, it's like.
Do we need to start some El Salvador?
Yeah, we do.
Airbnbs?
Yes, we definitely
do. He surfed in Salvador.
Yeah, I surfed. I'm a Missouri boy that's just a natural on the surfboard, man.
I'm not.
And we got Mauricio.
Mauricio, yeah, shout out to Mauricio.
Predator from the east side
San Miguel,
of the country.
right?
Yeah, San Miguel in Las Flores. this guy's a character in El Salvador for a long time ago, you know.
Oh man, it was entertaining. We'll have to discuss some of it off camera, but yeah, it was great.
And I think hospitality is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
The real estate is a good opportunity too, because the president decides that economic interest from El Salvador has to go to the east side of the country, because we have a huge river that goes River Lempa, and all the things that happen after Rio Lempa is poverty. You know, if you go over there, they don't have access to.
There's no infrastructure,
right? Which is where you finish, but mining comes into play there from a grid infrastructure build out standpoint, and that's kind of what, when we first went down there, that's what we were talking about, is grid development.
And I think the mining, it would be important in our country if the people understand how mining works. You know, the problem over here right now is that we have to make all the framework with the electricity, because right now the electricity is ruled by Central American organizations. So, but even that, if, for example, you want to put some machines in El Salvador and you want to bring your own electricity, our country is open. The only electricity that you have to ask for permission is if you're going to do hydro or if you're going to do geothermal, because you need a permission from the government, because you're using
natural resources.
Right. Yeah. But if you, for example, bring solar, aeolic, or any kind of energy, you can bring the energy to El Salvador and you can put your machines over there. But right now we're working on it. But I think, because, you know, I'm not, I am really new talking about Bitcoin. I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. I remember that one guy before, a long time ago, we were in some place and he was saying, hey, we have to invest in Bitcoin. Why am I going to invest in something that I don't have, you know? And I'm a lawyer, you know, so the lawyer works in law, you know? So people start to talk to me about, oh, you have to learn about blockchain. And I said, well, I don't care about blockchain. I don't care about any digital things, you know? My focus is arbitration and what I studied in my law school. But suddenly I have this opportunity to come over here, and the first person that I met, it was Marshall Long.
He was the first person.
That's the first person I met in Bitcoin, you know. And
that's who we send as our Bitcoin delegate.
Right. And the thing is,
love you, Marshall.
And the thing is, when I start to talk with Marshall, and Marshall start to explain me everything, you know, and I saw the facilities that they have in Rockdale, you know, I was pretty impressed. But when he started to tell me everything, I understand that it's not just Bitcoin coming to El Salvador. We need that Bitcoin mining start to operate in El Salvador. Mm-hmm. Because if you buy some Bitcoin, you have your asset, you know, you have the Bitcoin over there, and it depends of the price if you decide to sell or not. So it's more like trade. But if you have your machines, and the machines, you get good electricity price, and you start to leaking all the days the money, you know, the money is going to come to our country. So if we understand that it's better for us having mining that Bitcoin, well, it's good having Bitcoin, but it's better if you have mining.
Is there anybody doing any projects currently down there?
Yeah, there's people working on stuff. There's
the name brand guys, or is it all
under the name brand guys are involved.
Okay.
And people are looking for more ways to go down there, because, like, honestly, I've told many people this, like, you know, there's a big concern about putting money into a foreign country because you don't know how, like, it can get nationalized, and it happens in oil and gas a lot, right? But now it's like El Salvador is probably a more friendly and safer environment to invest in Bitcoin than places like New York, or, you know, I don't want to say Pennsylvania, they're still open, but like places like New York, California, any place where you have administrations or leanings that are kind of anti-energy use, because of their lack of understanding of how the energy use is actually, it can be used in a way to strengthen so many other aspects that really enhance people's lives. I think that's a risk. Look at New York's banned Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
So places like El Salvador are actually safer investments.
And that's why I start to talk with the people, because you know that we have free trade agreement, and there is one chapter, I think it's chapter 10, that it talks about investment and all the framework for investment. There are like 4 rights that you have if you go to El Salvador, and if you get expropriation from the government, they have to pay you the money exactly, because I mean, I can assure that the President Bukele, during the time that he will be there, you know, he will respect all the investment in Bitcoin. But we don't know after that. We don't know about that, you know. We don't know what it will happen in the future and what time the president will be in as a president. But that that framework help you to understand that it's really, really, really secure to invest in our country, because we have this free trade agreement. And if you have any problem, you can go and ask to our government to pay you back the money, not in El Salvador. You can come to one international arbitration.
It's for the CAFTA, right? Based on CAFTA.
Yeah,
so
but
Central America.
But the exceed is the investment settlement arrangement from arbitration. I don't remember the name exactly, but well, the things that you can go to the World Bank to help you to solve that problem with El Salvador. You know,
right?
Yeah.
Which that is good and that helps, but people are always still going to be like, okay, I don't want to, have to go down that route. Like that's a hang up for them.
10 years.
Right. 10 years later. Yeah. I mean, and obviously as this law is in place longer, and as, like you were saying, trial and error and things develop and laws will be created and other things will be tightened up and all this stuff will start working itself out. It's like this is truly like a free market place right now. And so the laws are going to start being implemented. But right now it's like we need to see more people make a jump. And obviously right now with Bitcoin prices being depressed and profitability down so much, it's hard to get money from anyone.
Actually, I was trying to sell a property in Bitcoin and then nobody wants to buy me the property because Bitcoin goes down, you know.
Yeah, we don't want to
try.
I told him, he told me 2 Bitcoin before.
3 Bitcoins.
3 Bitcoin.
Yeah, 3 Bitcoin.
So now I'm like, all right, 3 Bitcoin. He's like, no, man, 9 Bitcoin.
I don't want 3 Bitcoins for that property. You know?
So let's look at this let's just do an imaginary case study, right? Let's assume you're still with J Energy, right? And you're looking at El Salvador. You've got on-grid. Obviously, is the cost of electricity there significantly cheaper than here?
It's higher.
It's higher.
It's significantly higher.
Okay.
That's the issue right now.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a red flag right at first. I don't know anything about the energy industry there. Is there oil and gas in the same?
They're
definitely not in the same quantities, but like on a much smaller scale.
Is there producible, like in economic
quality
or quantities, oil and gas?
Can
you speak to that?
Yeah,
I know there's not a ton of development
right now. We don't have this kind of energy in El Salvador.
Yeah,
we don't have this resource working yet. Yet. We're working on it. I cannot say more, but we're working on it.
Well, there's a lot of hardworking oil and gas entrepreneurs, probably like Gideon, who would love to go down there and poke some holes in the ground.
Yeah.
Gideon.
You know Gideon, right?
He went to El Salvador.
Gideon went with me to El Salvador a second time.
So maybe Troy Petroleum starts punching some holes in El Salvador. It becomes international.
If anybody was down to do that,
it'd be Gideon. It'd be Gideon 100%.
No doubt. So
okay, so let's go back to this. So let's just assume oil and gas off the table. So we're powering probably on grid in some capacity. How do we get over that hurdle? Because obviously bringing prosperity to El Salvador and to the people and stuff is a super, super noble cause. But from a purely capitalistic investor standpoint, how do we incentivize the miners to come down and invest into El Salvador?
Can I take that, Mardo?
Sure,
do you care?
Sure.
I think it needs to be done kind of as a blended effort with I've talked about this before, ESG, we focus almost solely on environmental kind of side of that. But from a social standpoint and even a governance standpoint, bringing power to people and stabilizing a grid and expanding a grid, making it more resilient is one of the best ways to improve somebody's livelihood and the circumstances that they live in. And so when I look at it, it's like, look, this needs to be a blended effort where we can bring in investment that from the ESG world that wants to develop a resilient grid that is based on renewable technology to people that don't have a resilient or really hardly any access to reliable electricity currently. So we bring in investment from that side. So solar, hydro working with the government, geothermal working with the government. And from the mining side, you're bringing in mining more of an infrastructure play. And this is kind of what I was pitching to
So you're saying
the government
being
folks
more
before.
vertically integrated, like
Right.
like Max at Standard Power, like owning power
owning
power
the power generation, right?
and then also the mining. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And using it as a way of like working with the government on areas that want to be developed, coastal regions, the eastern side of the country where you got it's like 60% of the country's undeveloped. I mean, it's a large portion of it does not have really that much development at all. So working in conjunction with miners and kind of the power providers to come in and strategically locate some mining facilities that is going to be used where it's like, hey, look, right now we don't have the residential or commercial development, but we want it to come here. And so in order to create more tourism and all this, we got to have reliable power, reliable grid, come and build out a solar facility here. We may just be mining off of it for the first 5 years, 3 to 5 years. As development starts to come out and we curtail power away from that, we're sending power from the mining operations to new residential, commercial development, tourism, whatever it may be. And we start moving to the next site where we're going to develop additional grid power and future residential, commercial development. We move our mining operations over there. So we kind of work in conjunction with like ESG efforts, Bitcoin mining efforts, and with the government based on their strategic development of where they want things to grow, and start kind of building it that way. Not make it like I say a lot. Bitcoin mining is not just about trying to make certain revenue. Like it is an infrastructure play, and if we would pitch it that way more, I think we'd have a lot more success rather than just saying, hey, we want you to be a Bitcoin miner. We want you to go into this. You need to adopt Bitcoin, yada, yada, yada. We need to take it and show for what it is and the use case it has, which is grid development and resiliency. So that's my opinion on it.
Yes. Even I didn't mention, but for example, right now, if you bring your own renewable energy source, the government gives you some tax exempt for bringing the machines and all the stuff, and you don't pay taxes, gain capital. How do you call that?
Capital gains.
Capital gains for
What kind of taxes do Bitcoin miners pay here?
I mean,
If
that's
any.
still a mess. So they treat it as ordinary income when you mine coins, even if you haven't monetized it yet. But then they also try to tax you as capital gains, long or short-term capital gains if you sell it within a year of when it was minted or mined.
And is that still gray area, or is that kind of like black and white now? Of like, hey, here's exactly what you need to pay.
It's still gray, and until that thing is resolved, that even more so than anything, I think the SEC does. For me, it's the tax, how it's going to get treated, and that keeps a lot of institutional money on the side. But that's where
that's
you
a
go to
major
place-
incentive. Yeah,
Right,
like
right.
assume the tax is 8% here, or whatever it may be. You go down there,
Yeah,
and it's
but-
like, hey, well, no taxes
Right.
for X amount of years.
That's in energy, not in Bitcoin mining.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in
okay.
energy. It's in energy. So if you bring your machines in, and do solar or aeolic or any kind of energy renewable, you receive tax exempts for some times, and you can bring the machines without paying taxes. So it's a good opportunity to invest in energy too. So.
Mm.
I don't know if you know about it.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's a big deal too, because that's a big expense.
Yeah,
right.
and
that's a huge expense.
if you want to spend your Bitcoin in El Salvador, you don't pay anything. But if you want to do business with Bitcoin, you pay capital gain if you receive any. But for example, if you go to El Sonte and you want to buy, I don't know, food or
right, whatever.
The shrimps, the cocktail shrimps.
Oh, dude, I gotta tell. Okay, yeah, you finish that, and then I gotta tell you a story about the food. It was freaking delicious. I got 4. Screw it, I'm telling the story anyway. I got 4 shrimp stuffed lobster. Right, so lobsters stuffed with shrimp is freaking delicious.
I love lobster.
Got 3 things of ceviche that were like this big.
Oh,
like
I love ceviche.
It was delicious ceviche, and then like I don't know. I hate using this term. Like a carafe a carafe of sangria is freaking.
Oh yeah, I know what you're
sangria.
talking about. Yeah,
like the big thing of it.
Yeah.
How much would you think that's cost me?
So you got the sangria, you get the lobster with
4
shrimp.
stuffed lobsters. 4. 3 things ceviche and that carafe of sangria.
In the States, you're looking at probably like $45-$50.
What are you talking about? Per lobster, you'd be looking at that. Easy.
Oh, yeah. It's multiple lobsters. Yeah. It's a lot of money. I don't know.
Yeah, like it'd be hundreds of dollars, right? $34, dude. $34. And that included the tip. Yeah. It was awesome.
Let's go get some lobster.
I know. And then there was the other sushi one we went to, Bruto.
No, I didn't.
You didn't go. Yeah. I went to Bruto. Went there, I'm not going to say it was Uchi level. But I took him to Uchi the other day. But it was good, really good. I blew it out that night. We spent like $100.
Does Uchi's paying you something? Because
Uchi should be paying me something as much. I'm taking so many
Uchi's
people there.
Good.
Uchi, I need a punch card, Uchi. Like,
yeah, $10 off the next.
Yeah, $10
meal.
off. Yeah.
And is he work for the park?
Oh yeah. It is. But yeah, I mean, look, El Salvador. I love the people, and I'm just a proponent of people that have, been dealt a tough hand and what they've had to overcome. I mean, Mardo almost downplays it, but the stuff you've had to see as a kid growing up and just living through a civil war like that, like we have no idea. Mm-hmm. We have no concept of what that would be like. And it's easy, again, for us to like look at another place and judge them based on the way we live now. But we've had, we've been a democracy for 200 plus years now. We're 150 years removed from our Civil War. Like it's a lot different situation there than it is here and what they're trying to overcome. We
have running water. We've got, a very stable grid.
Right.
And
we have all the
natural resources in our country is limited, really limited.
Right.
So Bitcoin opened an opportunity to have our own mining,
Yeah.
Right.
But at least you get something for Bitcoin, and we don't have. We have gold in some places, but it's really hard because the gold is around the river that gives you food and water all the time. So we have just one huge river, that's Lempa River, and around it has some gold mining, but you cannot use it because you use cyanuro and all that kind of metal, hard metals that can give you problem with the health, with the
pollute it.
Yeah. So
and like our biggest export from the U.S. to El Salvador has been basically MS-13. And that's where I'm like, look, man, we owe it to them to try to help them out of this. And that's why I do hope that that these things work out, and that, there's people concerned about the civil rights issues, which everybody should be. And, you should watch for that, but we also can't sit here and hypocritically judge them based on situations that we've played a role in creating. And, like it or not, that's the reality to me. And I just want to see it be a success there. And I'm super happy I've got to meet Mardo. I want to get Ambassador Mayorga on here. I'd love to get Bukele on here at some point. We need to get President Bukele.
Well, we'll go to El Salvador.
Yeah, we'll go to El Salvador. We'll go to El Salvador and do it. Hook us up, Mardo.
Pack the whole studio up. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm looking for another reason to go down there anyway.
Yeah,
I gotta go surf again. So
let's go.
Yeah, I was born to surf. I just realized that. I realized that after one time. So.
Look at the view.
Yeah, there's an inside story to that. I can't tell you. But yeah, it was awesome. It was great. And yeah, man, I'm happy you came on, and I appreciate it. And
thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely.
Sorry that I talk too much.
No,
what are you
no,
talking about?
You did great. I have a much greater understanding of the situation in El Salvador now, and I'd love to go.
Yeah. You got
Let's
anything
go.
else you want to ask him about?
I feel like I need to do more research, and then we'll get you on again.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I'm gonna go read some books in El Salvador and try to school myself up. Maybe I could throw you some curveballs next time.
Well, so tell me why you're here in town, though.
Well, my little kid. Well, we came with my family because my wife has her cousin lives in Fulshire.
Okay.
But I went to Austin and we went to San Antonio because my kid wants to study engineering,
Aerospace engineering, right?
engineering. And she received a letter from the University of Texas that they are interested in her to study. She's in 10th grade.
That's awesome.
She made a pre-SAT and she's receiving offers for different universities. And that's why I'm here in the United States, because I was a lawyer over there. And sometime I received the invitation to come to United States and work at the embassy. And when my wife, because I have different opportunities. Even my wife's from Colombia. There was open one opportunity in Colombia. But when we heard about Washington, my wife was in some meeting with some teacher in 3rd grade of my kid. And he said, your kid will be whatever she wants. The only thing that she needs is your support. So that's why I resigned all my past, all my dreams, and come to the United States to make my kids' dreams
awesome, man.
come true.
And an aerospace engineer too. Like it's so cool that that's a thing that kids are now into again.
I know, man.
You think about like NASA dying off, right? But then you got SpaceX and Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic, and there's countless others. I get like notifications all the time about, investments that are going into the space industry. And I think to myself, like, how cool is that to get to work on something that you're probably going to see, I'd say, dramatic improvement in that space,
especially from the private industry, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so she went to Uchi with us as well. His daughter did. She speaks like perfect English. And I was like, so, how long ago did you learn? She's like 2 years. And she didn't she just learned from being here, right? She didn't even speak
being
English.
Immersed,
She's studying a French school in El Salvador, so she speaks French, English, and Spanish.
And she said she's working on Portuguese right now?
Well, she wants to study Portuguese, but right now she has to calm down because too much. She always is pushing herself, and we're trying to not get tired to her,
Yeah.
That's like every parent's issue is their 15-year-old just trying to learn too much and just pushing it so hard, you know what I mean? That's a very common problem here in the US, man.
It's not the same thing with my other kids, It's the same thing with other kids. But they are incredible too. They speak 3 languages too, and one of them, they are twins, and one said that he wants to be a lawyer, so it will be my follower,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Even that, I think the opportunities in the United States are good. I think that at the end, what we want, or what I want for my kids, is that they have to know that their roots are in El Salvador, and they have to give some example to our country, but then give back to our country, because even that we have war, we have a lot of things. We have people that is showing us during their life that you can do things different for yourself, but then you have to help the people to growing as you have the opportunity to grow. And I think the main thing in El Salvador has to be the education. If the education works, and the people who's right now learning English, in 10 years, they will be speaking perfectly English. So the president is working on it. They are giving some computers, and you can hear that, okay, but here in the United States, they give you a computer, but in El Salvador, a lot of people doesn't have this opportunity to dream. And if you have a computer and internet, you have
Mhm.
open source to learn.
That's true.
Things like that we take for granted.
Oh, we do. We take so much for granted, and I mean, it's not our fault all the time, but I do think we have a duty to try to learn about it. I love it. I love talking to you about this stuff. And speaking of lawyers, real quick, we are starting a nonprofit.
Nonprofit, yes.
Right. So we're going to be working on putting together like a legal organization that kind of focuses on Bitcoin implementation and
helping the lawyers understand the Bitcoin, because if you go to any country in Latin America and you talk about Bitcoin, the lawyers doesn't know anything about it. So when the politicians goes to ask to the lawyer, okay, what do you think about Bitcoin? All the people is like, oh no, don't go. So we were talking with Justin, and we think that the best way that we can help the people to understand, the lawyers to understand, is working with a team. Like right now I'm just with him talking about it. But what we see is that if we make an organization that it could be at the beginning with all Latin America, but it can grow to all the world. We can give the opportunity to lawyers to understand, because when I go to El Salvador and I ask my friends, do you have the Chivo wallet open? No. I say, why you don't open it?
Mhm.
You can swap the money immediately if you don't want to use Bitcoin. But you are losing clients because the people who's coming and understand the Bitcoin, they want to pay you in Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah.
Chiva wallet is the El Salvadoran wallet. When they implemented the law, they started their own wallet.
If you
Chiva
send
wallet.
me $10,000, I will help you to understand that.
Oh yeah,
You just sent me 20,000 back.
Mardo's a TikTok star too, by the way. Now we should. What's your TikTok handle? Because we need to put that out here so that you can create a bigger following than he has already.
Dr. Mardoqueo To, the TikTok. Yeah.
Somebody's
but it's in
gonna have
Spanish. Right now it's just in Spanish because I help the people to understand in El Salvador how the laws work. There's a lot of people who lives over here. They get scammed for some lawyers over here, and they receive money and they don't do the work. So I'm trying to help to make easy understand what are the steps that they have to follow to get some legal advice in El Salvador without having these huge problems. That sometimes they pay some money to a lawyer over here that they can tell you that I will work for you in El Salvador, and they don't know, they don't have any idea.
Yeah.
So I'm coming here to work at the embassy, so I don't have any interest in their money of that. So what I'm doing is giving my free time to teach the people how they can develop their ideas in El Salvador with the commercial law, or how they can solve a problem with the civil law, and a lot of things, man. I try to, right now, because I was so busy traveling with ambassador, I stopped for a while, but it was when I received a course and it says like, okay, you have to make the 100 TikToks, and then you can start to learn, so the people is not coming in one TikTok. In my fourth TikTok, I got like 4,000 people following me. So I think it's a good work what I'm doing.
I mean, that's similar to what we do with energy and with Bitcoin stuff too. But I mean, it's a really good point. I don't really think about lawyers who represent the embassy in Washington D.C. for El Salvador creating TikToks to spread the gospel. But like, yeah,
he's the man.
That makes sense.
He's the man. I appreciate it, man.
No,
I'm glad
thank you.
We'll make this happen again.
Yeah.
I want to follow the progress in El Salvador, and we should plan a trip down there sometime.
Yeah, no, we definitely should.
I want that lobster, man.
I know.
Let's go to eat lobster.
Yes, that's it. I'm down.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Mardo.
Actually, I will be there on January 30 to February 7th if you want to go. I will be in my vacation, so I can show you the country if you want to go. Okay?
Don't tempt me
It's
with a good
open.
time.
It's
Don't tempt
open.
me with a good time.
It's
Mardo,
open.
thanks for coming, man.
Yeah,
thanks
really appreciate it. It's great meeting you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for schooling us up. Appreciate it.
I always appreciate getting to hang out with my
Hey.
boy. What? So,
My twin.
my twin.
My American
El
twin.
Salvadoran twin.
Yes.
Thanks, bro.
Also, everybody, leave us a rating and a review, preferably 5 stars, and tell us really good things so we can make this podcast blow up. So I'm excited, man. We're having fun.
It is. It's good. So thanks, man.
Thank you.